Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Dan. Whatever you guys.
You're ready. Okay, you're on. We're all set. Okay, we'll call a public safety meeting, or public safety meetings to order. First on the agenda is we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by John and Jim. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Tony, come on up to the seat. You're first on the agenda. Now, I'm always under a lot of pressure because my meetings tend to be long, so you're setting the precedence. Favorite word.
They told me yesterday, go long or stay short.
Stay
So
short.
it's just been briefly brilliant gone, so.
There you go.
Well,
I
I
like
can't be
that.
brilliant and
We'll go with the brief.
a lot to cover. I'll do my best to be brief. So a couple things I wanted to do. One is to go through our crime victim services stats. I think it's good to see the work they do. And it gives you an appreciation of the challenges that we as a county face. But in 2023, so our year for the Victim Services Office runs October to September. So it is a little bit behind, but they served almost 1,700 victims. Over 700 were new victims during that time, which a new victim would be a victim of a crime. And then obviously the cases take time to process. Almost 4,000 follow-ups for information. Phone to face or face-to-face contact with victims is over 2,500. They're constantly on the phone. 2,700, I think, case status updates, and then sort of the prosecution support and advocacy is almost 6,000. We keep these stats because the state loves statistics to support the funding that the state provides. And really part of why I want to share this is the county also steps in and fills the gap that the state doesn't provide. But you can see they far exceed the goals set by the state, but they do a really good job of keeping victims informed. And victims are difficult because they don't understand the system, so they're nervous, and they're the emotional challenge that they have as a result of not voluntarily choosing to be in the criminal justice system certainly adds to what Rob and Laura and Emily deal with. Quickly, I'll hit on a couple of hot spots just so you have a sense of what types of cases we're dealing with. Domestic violence victims, over 400. Adult assault, stalking type cases, almost 600. Child abuse, 54 victims. Child sex abuse, 193. Adult sexual assault, 35. I think some of the noteworthy cases that they've dealt with or are dealing with, we tend to forget as we move into the next set of cases, but there was an awful arson in Hudson Falls that's left a huge hole in the village of Hudson Falls as far as both landmarks and tenant opportunities. They worked with all of the victims of that residence, and I forget how many there were. There may have been 10 or 12 in terms of getting reimbursement from the state and helping them understand the process. We just wrapped up a week ago at least the trial portion with the Monahan murder. There were a lot of victims in that case, each of the kids and their families that were in the cars, not to mention Kalen's family. So that's been a very long, rewarding process for them, but certainly a challenge. But then on top of that, we had a homicide in Fort Anne on August 15th in the midst of all of that. So they've been busy working with those families as well. So I can certainly leave this with you all. I didn't get a chance to make a copy. Any questions on any of that?
How many victim impact statements have they done over the year, keeping in mind that I know the court generally limits it to one per crime, even though there may be multiple.
I don't know. I don't know if I have that statistic. It's something we chart.
It's obviously something very important that they do as far as helping victims.
Yeah, and that's so whenever there's a felony conviction, the victim is entitled to give a statement. So what will happen there is they reach out at the very early stages to begin explaining their rights. But then once there's a plea, we then work with the victims to do one of three things. We encourage them to submit statements because it gives them a chance to tell the court and Department of Corrections, if the person's going to prison, how the crime has impacted them. They will do a couple of things that you often have somebody who's, you know, their anger is palpable and real. And so we try to help them take that and channel it into a statement that fits within the statutory requirements, the court requirements. And then either our office reads it for them or they can read it. And it's both a therapeutic opportunity for the victims, but it's also a chance to let the world know, the Department of Corrections world know that this is the impact that crime had on them. And I think that's probably the hardest part of what they deal with in terms of helping someone who wants to say something, but the rules won't let them.
Don't need to change it, let's say assailant is a minor.
If they are under 18, so raise the age, has impacted that. So what happens, if it's going to stay in the youth part of adult court, then they can read a victim impact statement. If it goes to family court, I'm gonna kick
It goes to
the can 'cause
family
I
court,
don't
they can, because there's usually much like there's a difference between trial and sentencing, it's called fact finding and disposition in family court. I usually send a notice saying that a person has a right, but under Family Court Act, if they're going to give a statement, they have to give, I think, 10 days notice prior to the dispositional hearing, because the attorney for the child representing the juvenile has the opportunity to respond.
Does the juvenile have to stay in the room?
Well, what happens, yes, the juvenile has to stay in the room, but what happens is the victim, if they want to give their statement in court, may do so, but they have to leave prior to disposition being entered, because there are certain confidentiality requirements with juveniles that, for example, basically it's sealed from the outside world except in very limited circumstances. So they're allowed to give their statement, but they can't stay to find out what the disposition is. And then we're prohibited from telling them afterwards. So it's a little more difficult in that respect.
Any other questions? So the next thing on the agenda is, it started, I don't know if I have enough copies. What started out as this past year, I was noticing that probably, it struck me that 2023 seemed like the most violent year that we've had in my previous 9 or of the 10 years, just seemed like the most violent. And there also seemed to be an increase in strangulation type cases. And then I get to wondering, am I just noticing it or is it timing? And so I was speaking to some other DAs and they were kind of seeing the same thing. So I got talking to the office and it struck me that, you know, maybe I could measure it somehow. So I asked everyone in the office, give me your top 5 cases that you worked on in 2023. And I was curious as to how much overlap there would be and what we would find. And so I didn't screen them. We got them the blanks. You'll see those are investigations. So I can't provide the names, but I thought it was an interesting exercise to see what impacted people. So you'll get a range. There's a vehicle and traffic matter on here that person had 30 tickets in one incident. So that impacted the people. This is from everyone from attorneys to victim services to administrative staff. And you'll start to see sort of what I was noticing is bared out. And so we also looked at a couple of different things. The breakdown of felonies, and A felony is the top, E felony is the least of the felonies. Of the A felonies, there were 7, B felonies 13, C felonies 14, D's were 20, and E felonies were 9. You'll see there were cases that were actually prosecuted. 5 of them were fatalities. There's another handful of cases that are ongoing investigations or may not result in criminal charges. But you can see the top still is domestic violence. And I think our sense was borne out if I looked at this. These are just, and this is not all the cases, obviously, but And then you kind of look at a breakdown of who the attorneys are. Public Defender's Office represented 24% of the people, or 19. Private was 22. That's my best guess based on the names. I didn't look at carefully. And then the assigned counsel is the rest. I was a little bit surprised with the number of private cases. We don't typically get that many, but it might just be overall, we still are in that 5 to 10% range. But that's just gives you a sense of what's been happening just in 2023. So far, 24 has maintained that same trend, it seems. So there's stuff we're trying to deal with. Any questions?
Got a question again, or we leave it?
Waving,
Must be.
little butterfly over there.
So as you look at, if you have any questions, please reach out. Lastly, Cassie corrected me, but I did put on the agenda a backfill, but it is a straight backfill. But I thought, well, it's worth mentioning. We lost one of our ADAs, Brandon Rathman. He went to work for the state court system. And I think the reality is for Dan and I, and I'm assuming Mike McCure as well, one of the issues we're going to face is the state pay system is significantly higher. Even though the county has looked to address salaries, I think you got about a 40% pay raise on day one, not to mention significant increases each year over the next 5 or 6. With no nights, no mornings, no weekends. So that's just an issue I think Dan and I are going to just be facing as we try to retain staff. So just something to put out. Yes, did we, Matt?
Tony, what's that job that he took? Where does he have to go to, that person?
Judge McKeegan's office.
Right, Judge McKeegan's
Yes,
office?
yeah. So, and I will say, since Judge McKeegan did not poach him, but when his law clerk left to go work for another judge, there was an opening, and it really, that kind of pay is hard.
It's a natural evolution though, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, sort of. It's a very different type of work, but when you have a young family, that kind of pay raise, I think the biggest thing is the stability of hours. When you're going to get paid more and you don't have to do nights, weekends, it's a hard thing.
There's also a limit to those number of jobs too, right?
Well, in Washington County, yes, but not when you look at Warren, Saratoga, Rensselaer.
But they're all limited to their own too. There's only a certain amount in Warren, there's only a certain amount in Saratoga.
But it's, yes, sort of. That you're starting to that really expands the available opportunities. I mean, I'm glad we're not in Albany. David Soros has to deal with it right in his backyard, but it's still, for that kind of pay, there's been people who would make the choice to make the trip. And then lastly, I didn't get this on the agenda in time. Each year we have to put forward our post-spending for bail forfeiture. I will say he voted for it in public safety one year. Changed his vote on the floor, but he did support it once based on our answer. But I have extra copies if people want them.
You almost had it.
The one good thing is the state changed the law a few years ago, and it basically had no effect on us, the way we do our business, because you guys have always required, since I've started, and I imagine long before that, a spending plan for forfeiture. Al basically always maintained and monitored the balances in the account, and we're also restricted as to how we can spend the money. So what you have in front of you is what our current funds are, the breakdown between federal and state, and then our proposed usage. Year in and year out, we don't use it all, but in order to spend any, we have to have this approved. So just ask that it.
I'll make a motion for it.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by Nate. Any further discussion? Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last one.
Was that?
Last one.
Thank you.
Sheriff Murphy, you're next up. This is probably why I probably moved me to this, because I have to tonight, oh, I'm law enforcement. Take a friendly witness.
Want to look at your-
So,
Want to look at-
Actually, if I could go out of orders, Harry here, to assist me with this, request that's not on the agenda, but, we have a civil software that runs the whole entire office, and as you know, about $1 million goes through that office every year. Current system had a lot of issues with, it's a long story, but they have a new owner of the company. The issues have continued, so that's why I requested Terry last year if we could look at changing that software. So we did get a quote from the company that does all but 7 counties in the state. So they have quite a few customers in New York State, which makes it nice for us. The company's or the software is called Softcode, and it's manufactured by Tyler Technology, which does our New World, so we're familiar with that. And that makes it nice in the fact that the county already has an agreement with Tyler for the New World stuff. Right? So what I'm asking is that I'm requesting a waiver, a purchase policy, so that we can use this company that the county's already familiar with, and that has given us a quote for all the reasons that I just mentioned.
Melissa says she'll help you out on that.
So not that you need help, but, so the request is to waive the need for the 3 quotes. And this is available through Best Value, through Sourcewell. So that's where we would need committee approval as well.
Any further questions?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by Nate. Bob?
Does that have any impact on the interaction with dispatches, system or anything like that?
No, it's separate, and in fact, it's now, the current software that we use is separate. There are new features that this software has that the old one doesn't, which include a mobile piece that civil deputies will have access to in their vehicles with mapping and things like that. So when they go to serve papers or do evictions or things like that, they can communicate back with our office anyways through a mobile piece. So it's
One part, oh, go ahead, John.
We have to take back. If we buy this thing here, we're gonna have to buy special things for the cars.
no,
That's all included.
Yeah.
That's all taken care of.
yeah, we already have the equipment in place.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but my additional understanding is that this program is part of Terry's budget. And Melissa has given me the numbers, it's $73,120 for a one-time fee, and then a 31,000, just over 31,000 recurring fee. But this was already part of your budget, we can approve for this year. Daryl?
I know we've had these conversations before, but just for the committee, how many viable vendors actually produce software to meet that need?
Specific to civil and kind of like on a standalone basis, not a lot. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know there's the one that we currently have. That's not their main piece, and usually that's what we find is that there might be vendors out there, other vendors out there that have CAD or RMS or whatever, but civil is kind of, I don't want to say an unthought of piece, but it's not. It's only for sheriff's offices, for instance. So if there's law enforcement software that's CAD or RMS, records management based, a lot of companies don't focus on the civil piece because it's only related to sheriff's offices.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. The next item I had was a vacation rollover request for the undersheriff. He didn't get a chance to use, his vacation hours. I don't have it listed on here.
I think last time I knew it was 100.
It is on there. He does have a plan in place to use those hours prior to March. So, he just works all the time. He's out every weekend on stuff. It's just, yeah, it's tough to get him to. Well, it's not a bad problem to have, right?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by James. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And then the last thing I had was a UA funding budget amendment request.
And that is, I guess, to go off of a meeting that was held in October, Health and Human Services, which that committee approved the plan for use of the opioid funds that we had received. At that point, the plan recommendations came to a total of $173,328. So I just wanted to bring it up at this committee because it will be going to finance next. That was already passed at the Health and Human Service meeting. But we will need a budget amendment so that money is taken from the opioid funds into the departments that are going to be spending it. The first was the $40,000 for the pre-arrest diversion program. That's through alternative sentencing. Then we had $36,000 for the responder health program. That was through public safety. And then the sheriff's opioid response coordinator for $97,328. So you'll see that again at the finance committee. And I know there's some new supervisors that may not be familiar with that opioid funding in the plan, and I can send you the PowerPoint that was presented at the Health and Human Service meeting in October. If that helps.
So we just need a motion to move to finance. So moved.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by James. Any further questions for discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. John,
Thank you, Shelley.
you're next in line.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Right. Handouts here. All right. Color. These are not obviously all of the numbers that we have going on in the department, but some of the bigger ones, more of them will be coming out as we go along. Like fire inspections and things. I want to get that information to you guys, and even more will be coming out in the annual report that we have to do with people. So, but just to go over some of the stuff that we had, I put this together. Building permits under number of applications. What I did for this, I gave 2023 totals, and then I gave some different breakdowns and comparisons previous years. So building permits, we have basically one application for all building permits. We have one application for all septic permits. Okay. So I can break these down further now than I used to be able to with the new software that we have. I didn't, because all I can do is go back a couple of years, so I can really compare previous, was it a pool, was it whatever. So it's just all lumped into one for the buildings. So we had 539, and basically it's about a 3% increase all the way back through to the 20-year average. Septic permits, we had 141. You can see the numbers there, kind of gone up and down a little bit here and there, but that's holding there. And then underneath, I broke down our revenue by categories. Overall, down at the bottom, you can see compared to the 5-year average, we're up 3.4 roughly percent, 10-year 13 point roughly 7%. So didn't know if you guys had any specific questions to your areas or to specific other specifics, I got all kinds of paperwork that I didn't figure you wanted. I can give you breakdowns of numbers. Actually, another thing I wanted to say too, we can come back to those questions if you want. Septic permits, it took us an average of 23 days to issue those. Building permits, it took an average of 21 days. I can give you all kinds of numbers on those too. 70%, no, 61% of the septics were done in less than 21 days. And 70% of the buildings were done in less than 21 days. But it was actually, I thought, pretty impressive because we have a lot of things that we end up having to hold to get information before we can issue it. That's not 21 days from when we get it, it's when we look at it. Get it when it's actually issued. So there are a lot of factors that go into that. For septic, we might be waiting for Department of Health to issue waivers, might be waiting for insurances to come in, might be waiting for engineers to give us more complete drawings. Some of those same things apply to the building side.
Any questions?
Thanks, Sean.
Sue?
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, so I have a couple things. I'd like permission to purchase gas cards in the amount of $2,000. And that would be under an API tax grant that we received from the state. We're in the second year of that particular grant, and the total dollar amount is $157,417. And that grant works with those that have substance use disorders and or mental health disorders. And the primary focus, we do a lot of support work with both our felony drug court in Washington County and our felony drug court in Warren County. And those participants have to complete certain milestones and outcomes with cognitive behavioral interventions. And the gas cards are used to primarily support the family members that have to transport them to many of their appointments. So it's kind of an incentive base, like they complete certain milestones and they may get a gas card. Or if we know a family is in dire need, they may get a gas card for their family member. The gas cards in the past for this grant have been purchased through Stewart's because they're one of the only ones that have gas only cards. So we've utilized Stewart's to purchase those cards. So I'd like permission to purchase those for this coming year.
Moved by Dana, seconded by James and Daryl. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. And then we also need to recognize some dollars for pretrial services that were somewhat unexpected, although it's a legislative ad. We did not know we were going to receive this funding. We did receive the same funding last year, roughly the same amount. And we got notification, I think, in December that we received this funds. They're tied to, or how they do the formulation, I think was based on arraignments, which really wasn't every arraignment in the county, but that's how they distribute the dollars. So it's to support pretrial services. This year, 25,000 would go into, a majority would go into last year's, but but 25,000, I can't, it's the dollar amount, 25,000. $62.75 would be in this year's budget. And we really, the only thing we haven't finalized what we may use some of those dollars for. We were thinking to enhance our training dollars, but we haven't identified the specific trainings that we would want, and or perhaps look at whether we can supply temporary phones that can be locked down. There's T-Mobile has a service
that locks down phones that we could use for those that are placed on electronic monitoring that have no phones. So, but to be determined, we have not looked into that further enough to give you final information on that. So just need.
We need a motion to move to finance, is that correct? So moved.
She'll have to split for you by then.
Yes, yes, I will.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by James. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're up.
Mike.
It's your turn on the Price is Right. No
Good morning.
prizes.
So I'm requesting to amend the staffing pattern to convert a part-time attorney position to a full-time attorney position. This was approved in the 2024 budget, but with a note recommended it to hold until 2024. What I wanted to do today was really just start the process. We have a grant meeting with ILS on February 9th. We have a contract meeting to renew the Harrell Herring funding on February 21st. I know the note was contingent on ILS approval in the 2024 budget. However, I would like to convert as soon as possible. I would note that. I also, as far as the 2023 budget, there's been a line for several years, ILS miscellaneous, and I don't believe we spent anything on that line in 2023. So I do think the funding would be available. And I think the first step would be to amend the staffing pattern, so that is my request.
Well, motion to move to personnel.
Moved by Daryl, seconded by Dana. Questions, discussion?
Yeah, so in the budget discussion, so you have a budget line you said is like in 2023, you didn't utilize. So can you please go, say that again with line?
Yeah, we have, there were various lines that are funded through indigent legal services for investigations, expert witnesses, and other miscellaneous expenses. The investigation line in 2023, we used 65% of it. The outside services in 2023, we used 130%. But the miscellaneous other, which is 25,000, we use 0. So we are over in one line. The difference in converting a part-time to a full-time is annually $17,565 is what's been calculated. That's the approximate expense, at least for 2024.
So you're advocating to use your other category as a bill payer in the budget?
I think in the discussions with ILS and forming the contracts that we might want to look at eliminating the outside service line and reallocating it to converting the part-time attorney to a full-time.
So that's your discussion for the ILS.
Yes.
Part of that based on the grant that was just received, we're talking about next week.
Well, not really, no. But the 2024 budget did approve a social worker and an investigator, also contingent on funding. And I think that could come up in the grant discussion.
So are you advocating, to understand, you're saying that you have extra money from last year that you would like, with the permission of Al, to move it into the position so we could start the funding process in case ILS doesn't come out with your lawyer?
Actually, to be more clear, I'm just noting that we have that surplus. Most of this funding with ILS is contingent on their approval and a contract.
So I know they'll certainly be open to the idea of taking funding that's not being used and allocating it to somewhere where funding will be used. But I think they need to be in on the discussion because the money's all contractual and we have existing contracts with the funding that would need to be amended. So as part of this whole process, I guess I would also be requesting a discussion with ILS to amend the contract to allocate funding to where we may utilize it, which I would believe, or which I believe would be converting a part-time attorney to a full-time attorney.
We're still waiting on the new contracts for, like, they all expired December 31st.
They are, but we have a meeting on February 21st, and they've already sent a proposed contract, which is essentially renewing all the previous contracts.
So they didn't go to a single
One contract that would renew all of the combined
flat
contracts.
funding.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Just a question to understand our role as committee in the contract. Are we bringing that contract to committee?
Nope.
I didn't think so. So I guess my point is, which, to your comment, I believe it's in your wheelhouse to figure out the ILS contract and how you define the use of those monies, correct? Is that a correct statement?
So he's doing it right, because if he's asking for something new, you want to know how it's funded.
Right.
So even if the ILS money is within his discretion, well, technically it's in ILS's discretion.
Yeah.
He's pointing out that now's the perfect time to ask ILS for a budget amendment.
Right.
Because he has unused money that he could better use in staff time, so.
And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm going down.
Yes,
This
sir.
is like,
Yeah.
I don't think we need, yeah, okay.
Full transparency for the committee, that's something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone okay with that?
Brian,
It all sounds good, but what happens if they don't allow that? How do we get that?
Well,
And I don't foresee that.
I don't either. I think
How do we input if,
one background on this is we've always been staffed to have the additional full-time attorney. The problem was the space problem.
Yeah.
So I think now that we have less of a space issue, we would actually just be closer to our actual staffing level, and we would have less overflow that we may have to send to the Senate Council. So I don't anticipate that they would not approve of this conversion.
any other questions? Melissa?
So the staffing request change would go to personnel to change the staffing pattern from part-time to full-time. The cost, Mike, I think you stated $17,565, and then fringe would be added to it, so the total's $23,595.
23.5, still under 25. He's saying.
And that would require a budget amendment, because we have the money currently in grant line, not in staff line.
Got it.
Okay, everybody in favor of moving this to personnel? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mike.
EMS. Peters, I haven't even heard it yet.
Best. The best goes last.
Oh, that
That's
means
coming.
Glenn.
That's not me.
Yes,
The first thing we have for EMS is an EMS advisory board appointment recommendation from Eastern Greenwood Rescue for Frank Brownell to be moved forward as the EMS advisory rep.
So moved.
Moved by Daryl, second by Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Number 2 under EMS is just an update relative to helping to bolster our future of EMS leadership in Washington County. We are doing a partnership joint training with Warren County. It's going to be early March on a weekend. It's going to be an EMS leadership boot camp that we're going to ask for 2 representatives in leadership positions from each of the EMS agencies here and in Warren County to attend that as part of our future of EMS and training funding that we're doing here. And the cost will not be over $2,500 for our portion, which is a great deal for us to be able to train up to 15 or 16 members of our EMS agencies in bolstering leadership for the future. So we're looking very much forward to that. We don't need any action, just kind of passing that on to you all. On the fire side, we have two EMS or fire advisory board representatives that we need to move forward. One is Andrew Paul from the Fort Ann Volunteer Fire Company.
Yeah.
And the second is Zach Cross from the Kingsbury Volunteer Fire Company.
I have a motion to approve the appointments. Moved by Dana, second by Jim. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, this one did not make the agenda, but it is something that was in the budget and we have been working on. Terry, myself, and the fire coordinator and a couple of our investigators have been working on the budgeted piece of the fire investigation management software that was in the budget for this year. We recently met with the vendor that the fire coordinator and investigators that have participated are interested in moving forward with. We feel like it's a great piece. It will not only help our management of fire investigations, but help when we turn things over to law enforcement and to the DA's office at getting everything in one place. Right now, manually, we're managing those investigations on multiple forms, some handwritten, some computer generated through simple programs like Microsoft Word. So this will get everything we need in one place, including digital media storage and management, as well as evidence management. So we are looking for a waiver of the procurement policy for this. The cost for year one is going to be $6,800, which is what we had budgeted and what we had planned for this year. So we are looking to move forward together with IT.
I have a motion to move forward. Let's go to finance.
Money.
The trust. Just the waiver. Oh,
Okay.
am I making you nervous?
Nope.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Jim,
Second that.
seconded by Daryl. Any further questions?
For the immediate question, how many software companies have you found out there?
So we've looked at 3 different ones. This is the one that's the most comprehensive, all in one spot, where we don't have to buy different modules and do different things. So, and Terry participated in all the demos that we did. We just had a technology meeting with them the other day and kind of went through all, obviously for us, this is part of investigation. So the security of the data that we're putting up there is very important to us. I mean, certainly we don't want to be putting our data out to just anywhere. So through the vetting process, this is the one that the fire coordinator was most comfortable with.
Thank you. Not yet.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, hazard mitigation plan, which you all know is underway. You've been getting peppered with emails from Tetra Tech and Glenn. So we have had 2 meetings thus far, the stakeholders meeting number 1 and our partnership meeting the other day that we just had. We know that it is painful. It is something that is required for us to do every 5 years. All you have to do on your town level is just get Tetra Tech and us any of the information that we're looking for. And if you can't participate in the meetings, just assign someone to participate. We don't want to see your town or village be excluded from the hazard mitigation plan rewrite. It's very important that it's out there, God forbid. We get any FEMA funding, we want to make sure that everybody's as eligible as we can be. So this is a key part. Thankfully, it's only every 5 years, but it will keep moving forward. So thank you to those of you who are able to make it. We certainly understand that there will be times you can't. Just let us know and we'll keep passing that information around. And for those of you, we know we have some new supervisors. Certainly you can engage your highway folks in that. They don't particularly enjoy it, but they are key parts of it. Because a lot of the information that you'll see over time that they're going to ask to collect, you're probably going to end up getting from them. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
All right, the next meeting of our LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, will be February 26th at 10 a.m. You are all invited. You do not all have to attend. Those of you who choose to, outside of a couple of the county officials that have to come every time. Sorry, dude. That should be relatively quick. We're planning to do that downstairs on the 26th. You will get an invite shortly after this meeting. And the biggest thing that we're going to talk about there is the update to our comprehensive emergency management plan for 2024. We'll present it at the LEPC meeting. You guys will all receive a via email like you do. Ask for any updates or suggestions. We'll discuss it there. And then it'll end up being moved forward to the next Public Safety Committee meeting after that for receipt and then forward it on to the board for approval. So we can get that into effect for 2020.
Questions?
Municipal emergency updates went out two weeks ago. Those are very important for us to be able to get a hold of you or any of your essential personnel in the midst of any emergency or on a nice blue sky day. If you haven't got those back to us yet, please do, just so we can make sure we keep everything up to date. I do have some copies with me. If you don't, or you need another one, just let me know. For those of you who did return it, we appreciate it. It's fun chasing people around, but we just want to make sure that we can get a hold of you before bad things happen. And I think the last thing I have relative to this Tier 3 emergency management training, the majority of the supervisors that have been here have been through at least one of these, if not multiple. They're also very exciting. They're about an hour and a half. We're gonna do a joint one with Warren County for all of our supervisors, new and old. And Warren County's gonna bring, we told them to bring whoever you want, new or old, doesn't matter to us. We're gonna do it virtual and in person, so we'll do it in person here and stream it on Zoom. For anyone who doesn't want to come down or can't come down for that, it will be on the 22nd of February from 9 to 11. So unfortunately, the chairman still has to go to the Tier 1. That's the good luck of. You did your refresher, yeah, you'll have another one in, 8 months that you'll have to do. But if you go to this one, I think they'll bless you again, so you don't have to do it again at the end of this year. So it's much less painful than the full Tier 1 in Albany. But it is important information, so that you all know before you have the potential to declare a state of emergency in your town or at the county level for the chairman. There's a lot of responsibility that goes along with your position, those kind of things. Certainly Glenn and myself are here to help you through whatever you have. And those of you who've ever had to do it, when you have to do it, you'll see one of us very quickly. And we come with our loads of paperwork and the excitement that comes with it and whatever you need.
You're really selling yourself.
I know,
there.
right? There's no way to make it interesting.
Peter says the secret to success is food.
Food. I don't have any food in the budget.
There you go.
Borrow something from Melissa.
There you go.
I think the last thing I just wanted to say is,
Good luck.
is that we have a very important person over here at the end of the table. That this will be Bruce's last appearance at a public safety committee meeting as our EMS coordinator, and he has served with us since 2001. So I hope he is looking forward to some personal time away from the excitement of being the EMS coordinator, good or bad. And we are very thankful for his service and partnership throughout the many years that he has given to us.
I appreciate the help you have given me all these years also, as well as all of the 17 supervisors who I call friends, because you all have been my friends. Thank you.
Want to talk about it?
I don't really want to help you anymore.
Oh.
I just am, but.
We'll be checking the mini fridges, sure.
So,
The first waiver denied is.
one of the program requests, that the opioid funding is going to cover is the first responder health program, that Tim had presented at a previous, Health and Human Service meeting. So we would like to ask for a waiver, because obviously it's not just a normal EAP program where there's a lot of people that provide those services. It's pretty unique in that it is for first responders. So, Tim and Glenn were asking for a waiver to the procurement policy for this.
Moved
by Daryl, seconded by John. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Good. Just the one item, right? Okay, I don't know how you want to word it. One would like to request an executive session for.
Contract.
Contract session.
Can I have a motion for executive session made by Dana, seconded by Daryl? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Are we probably adjourning out of this, or do we need to take action?
Yes.
You may-
Oh, yeah, I have some other, so we'll be coming back out. Okay, sorry.